Dhikr, the Remembrance of God, by M.R. Bawa Muhyiddin, narrated by Sabil Mer. Chapter 1, The Constant Remembrance. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Prayer which arises out of resolve and zeal takes many different forms and is done in every conceivable language. The ways in which Allah's creations worship Him are as limitless as the stars in the sky, earth, fire, water, air, and ether, the angels and archangels, saints, Qutbs, jinns, fairies, and illuminati beings, the stars, sun, and moon, all of them worship and glorify God in countless languages. Even Satan and his followers pray to God. The hells, the heavens, the celestial maidens, Huri, human beings, Insan, beasts, reptiles, birds, illusion, Maya, and countless other worships Allah in a multitude of ways. Some of the more exalted ways of performing prayer and worship will be pointed out here. God, the one known as Allah, who is incomparable, alone, and eternal. He is without beginning or end, without form or subtle form, without shadow and without any helpmate. He is not bound by any limit. He shines as truth within truth, as wisdom within wisdom, as the heart within the heart, the Qalb within the Qalb. He shines as the incomparable, endless one, a limitless power. In order that this power might be understood in worship, God manifested man, the most exalted of all his creations, distilling him until he reached a state of perfect clarity. This being created in such a manner is known as Adam. It is said that 42 children were born to Adam and Eve from 21 pregnancies. Those children joined together as 21 families. Thus mankind is known as the family of Adam. To these human beings, God has given the wisdom of His essence, Dhat, and the body of His manifestation, Sifat. Within that body He placed that which is permissible, Halal, and that which is prohibited, Haram, as well as goodness and the dark of the base desires. Having placed them within, He made the goodness into absolute goodness, Khair, and the evil shar into shirk. He made the permissible into goodness and the prohibited into evil. He placed many such understandings within the human body. The qualities of earth, fire, water, air, and ether, all that arose from them as well as that came forth from the grace. His essence or Dhat were then explained individually. These six were created as the six kinds of lives. Of these, the creation which is mankind or insan was formed by Allah out of His essence as the life of goodness, the life endowed with wisdom and wisdom of the Nur. Only this creation, the one that has wisdom, can be called insan. This is the sixth kind of life. But later, those created in the form of man, those children of Adam, who began as one race, split up into different groups, into Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, Christianity, and Islam. Having separated themselves into these four sections into 73 groups, they began to glorify God in different ways in different languages. Thus, they separated into different forms of worship and different religions. They treat things such as idols, statues, or pictures as equal to God, replacing the worship of God with idol worship, or with the worship of shadows, the worship of base desires, nafs, the worship of illusionary things, maya, the worship of this world of created things of fire, spirits, and 84 kinds of air, of the sun, moon, and stars, and of beasts, birds, and reptiles. They look upon these things as gods and pray to them and worship them. Such actions are prevalent. Divisions arose out of their practice of different kinds of prayer and worship, resulting in the creation of 400 trillion, 10,000 gods, and the separation into various groups of people who worship them. This is how the one family of mankind began to separate, and in the process they began to treat God as a God of separations. It is the very creations given the exalted wisdom of man who have done this. All this happened because man did not understand the divine analytic wisdom within him or his soul, that life which is the Dhat, the essence of God. God therefore sent the prophets and Qutbs as his representatives to explain about prayer and to instill in the people the absolute certitude, free of the slightest doubt, that God is one, and that there is none worthy of worship other than God, Allahu Ta'ala. These prophets and Qutbs were sent to firmly establish prayer, to enlighten the people's wisdom, and to strengthen their Iman. absolute certitude of faith in the one God. 124,000 representatives came to prove the existence of God. They came to give certitude to wisdom, Iman, and faith. However, in accordance with whatever state people were in, they accepted and followed the different prophets, and holding fast to their belief in a particular prophet, created separate religions based upon their beliefs. This resulted in divisions among mankind. The prophets all came as representatives of one God to teach the children of Adam about God and to make them accept him, but instead they accepted his prophets and followed them. And since there were many prophets, the people by following them have created many religions. 124,000 representatives of God have appeared. This is the decreed limit, and that limit has been reached. However, despite the messages they all brought about the one power that has no equal or parallel and is beyond limit, the people still did not understand. Each group ascribed to that limitless power a beginning and an end. They also set a limit on what prayers should begin and when they end. And so there exists a prescribed limit for prayers done in any language. Thus, instead of following the one who is limitless, the people began to follow their particular prophet and to worship in a limited manner, praying to forms or formless things, to spirits, to base desires and cravings, or to the mind. The people, with their happiness and sorrows and a million different thoughts and intentions, placed their own states in front of themselves and prayed to them with a prayer which has a time limit. Such prayers take only 2 to 5 minutes to finish. It's people that have created these limits, these beginnings and ends. These are the ways that have prevailed in the world from the time of Adam was created until today. In every man, this state exists as the opium called religion and dogma. One who imbibes this opinion cannot look up with discrimination. Lacking the discrimination of divine analytic wisdom, he bends his head down and gazes at the place of birth, the section of creation. Instead of using his divine analytic wisdom to discriminate and look up at God's thought, the essence which is God's grace, he succumbs to the intoxication of this opium, and that makes his head droop and droop and droop. His neck and his heart bend and bend until his head droops down to look at the place of birth, of creation, the place from which he yearns. Thus, his ability to see discriminately disappears. So does the wisdom and intelligence to realize, the wisdom to understand, the divine analytic wisdom to separate right from wrong, and the divine luminous wisdom to understand clearly and extract what needs to be extracted. Due to this opium, his feeling, awareness, intellect, assessment, subtle wisdom, divine analytic wisdom, and divine luminous wisdom, all 7 levels of consciousness, become drugged. When he is in this state, intoxicated and bent over looking down at the place of birth, he is looking toward the very place where religious fanaticism originates. If at that time he suddenly hears, "Wake up! Wake up! Why are you in this drugged state? Why do you keep looking there?" He will immediately start resisting. If a sheikh who is an Insan Kamil, a representative of God, taps him with wisdom and awakens him saying, "Wake up! Wake up! Why are you looking there?" He will retort, "Who are you? Go away and proclaim my religion, your religion," and begin to fight. He will start wars, commit murders, and perform human sacrifices and other evil acts. These are the battlefields of these intoxicated by the opium of religions. One awakened such a one will immediately start fighting and even be willing to commit murder. Due to the intoxication from the opium, he will be lacking the wisdom that discriminates and so will not know good from evil. Therefore, his every action will be a battle. Without any fear or compassion, without even so much as a thought, he will commit many atrocities. There is one thing that we who are children of Adam must be aware of in our lives. We have to understand the 6 kinds of life. We have to understand the separations and differences that exist among the children of Adam, and understand how much evil results from the arrogance associated with the opium of religion. In order to dispel such darkness and ignorance and to reveal the wisdom of his essence, God gathered together teachings he had given to the 124,000 prophets who were his representatives, informing them of his glory, his qualities and actions, his patience, tolerance, peacefulness, and justice, the story of his eternal state, the explanations concerning his creations, his quality of protectiveness and of sustaining all lives by giving them food, his quality of summoning back all the lives he created, inquiring into their good and bad, and giving to each of them their appropriate station, the day of judgment, and the conditions governing the beginning and the end of creation. He also gathered together the stories regarding the prophets, the teachings and commandments he had given to them, their qualities, the difficulties they experienced in the world, and the hardship they faced, the worship that is done by the people using idols in place of God, the magics and mantras used to invoke the elements, and the qualities that worship these elements as God. Ultimately, having gathered together all of these countless other explanations, taking all of the commandments, he had taught the prophets all the verses and chapters, taking the whole story, the wrong and right, and manifesting Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the final prophet. To this, he gave the name Iman Islam, while to the commandments he gave the names Tiro Marai, Tiro Quran, and Satihiya Vetam. With God's treasure, his grace and his dot or essence, and using the true wisdom, the wisdom of that essence, his beauty, which is Muhammad, accepted his word, this Tiro Marai, this Tiro Quran, this revelation, its resonance, its meanings, and the radiance that shimmered within it. And this way God's beauty, the beauty of his face, and the light that is the beauty of his heart, received his word and accepted and absorbed it. Ahmad Muhammad in the Tiro Quran, Ahmad is the Aham, the perfectly pure heart, and Muhammad is the beauty of Allah's countenance. It confirms that it was these two, Ahmad, the Qalb, which is his light, and Muhammad, the beauty of his countenance, that accepted his sound, the 6,666 vibrations. The proof of this truth, along with the story told to the earlier prophets and the story that later descended in the form of verses to Muhammad, all of these were given the name Tiro Quran. In accordance with that name, the sound of Allah's essence, his dot, which is Iman Islam, resonates as a meaning within the Tiro Quran. The resonance and the meaning are both within the Tiro Quran. The sound of that essence is Iman Islam. The sound of that clear meanings that resonates from its form Iman Islam, that is what Iman Islam is. Allah rolled up and gathered together those sounds, the 6,666 verses, to fashion the form of the Iman Kalama, which is the form of man. This form of the Kalama is an inner form made up of 27 letters. The 27 letters are the light form, or Sarat, that speaks to God. This is what the Kalama is. This Kalama, which is composed of 27 letters, is the form for the light called Ahmad and Muhammad. What is called Iman Islam is the resonance and explanations heard when the form of the Kalma listens to and speaks with God. Iman Islam is the perfectly pure Quran, the Tiro Quran. It is made up of 28 letters. This is God's grace, the grace of God's essence, the treasure for all three worlds, the beginning, this world, and the hereafter. This is the ultimate story. The 6,666 verses, the prophets and their stories, their sorrows and joys, their gains and losses are all compressed and contained within the 28 letters which compose Iman Islam. It was to the light of God's essence known as Ahmad, and to his beauty known as Muhammad, to this form which is both the beauty and the light of his essence, that the Tiro Quran, the Tiro Marai, and Iman Islam, the sounds of communion with him, were sent down to commune with God through the 27 letters, is Miraj. Miraj means to converse with Allah in the place where he dwells. That is where Muhammad Ahmad communes with the kings of kings in the station of the Arsh, throne of God, crown of the head, where the kings of kings dwells. This is the state of Miraj. Speaking with the kings of kings is what is known as Miraj. This is the station of Muhammad Ahmad, the light speaking to the resplendence known as Iman Islam or the Tiro Quran. All of the 6,666 verses, all of everything is contained within these 28 letters. If one understands this, he understands the ocean of divine knowledge. Only if one understands Ahmad can one understand the Kalama. Only if one understands Muhammad can one understand the limitless beauty of Allah. Only if one understands Iman Islam can one understand the Quran. One who does not understand this is called Satan, the kafir, or unbeliever, who talks behind one's back. That which will explain and elucidate this story is the light form called Ahmad and Allah's beauty known as Muhammad. This is the secret inner form, the messenger that came as a helper for awal and dunya and akhirah, the beginning, this world and the hereafter. The inner form of Allah's essence, that is Ahmad and Muhammad. The story of that secret form is Allah's story. If one understands the story of the Dhikr Marai, the story of Iman Islam, and the story of the Kalma, he will understand that this is the Quran, the ocean of divine knowledge. Even if all the water in the world were made into ink, and all the wood in the world were made into pens, and they were used to write about the form of Surat of this Kalma and the Dhikr Quran known as Iman Islam, the explanation could never be completed. Even if we tried repeatedly, we could never encompass it all. It is limitless. We have to understand this. All living creations were given an explanation at the Stirul Marai so they might pray with understanding. The light called Ahmad and Muhammad provided explanations to the 6 kinds of lives: trees, plants, vines, grasses, shrubs, birds, human beings, beasts, jinns, fairies, angels, all living creations at the correct time for each fitting their level of wisdom. Milk was given to the one who needs milk. Rice was given to the one who eats rice. Fruit was given to the one who eats fruit. Water was given to the one who drinks water. Flesh was given to the one who eats flesh. To each was given whatever was needed, appropriate to their level of wisdom. In this way, Muhammad, the form of the Kalma, the light of God's essence, gave to the many millions of God's creation the explanations of prayer, the explanations of what is permissible and prohibited, and the meanings of good and evil in keeping with each one's ability to understand. Different ways of worship appropriate for each were also shown. The prayer or vanakam appropriate for an Insan Kamil was shown to the Insan Kamil. The prayer appropriate for angels was shown to the angels. The prayer appropriate for jinn was shown to the jinn. The prayer befitting the understanding of the prophets was explained to the prophets. The prayer appropriate for animals was taught to them. In the same way that which was appropriate for monkeys was taught to the monkeys. Thus, whatever was suitable for each type of wisdom is explained to each creation, and the manner befitting that creation. To those with divine analytic wisdom, explanations were given that would help them understand with discriminate. Each one was shown the section of the limitless ocean in which they could bathe. Those who wanted to swim in the ocean were shown the ocean. Those who wanted to swim close to shore were shown the shore. Those who were content to scoop up just a handful of water and bathe with that was shown that. In this manner, with the directive, you must understand. The grace of Allah and the ways of worship and prayer were shown to each in keeping with their level of wisdom. Thus there exist these different ways, different types, different states, and different steps. As just a part of the total story, Iman Islam is usually presented as the 5 and 6 duties. In describing it, people commonly say the 5 and 6 duties must be realized and understood. This is how Islam is understood in the world. However, this is but one part of a vast story. Thus far, we have been talking about the Quran. After we finish speaking about all of this, we will connect it to the explanations of prayer and dhikr. They are connected, not different from one another. They are the truth of Islam. All this is the essence of what has been told to the wisdom called Iman Islam. What we have said so far is but a fraction of the total meaning. It is actually a great matter, for if you come to understand it, you will be able to understand the power of Allah, the power of His essence, His dot. Understanding this through the 7 levels of consciousness: feeling, awareness, intellect, assessment, wisdom, divine analytic wisdom, and divine luminous wisdom will open up the vast ocean of Allah's grace. However, when understood and explained only by the intellect, these duties seem to be very ordinary. Such explanations limited to the level of intellect can be understood easily. There are 5 and 6 obligatory duties of Fard in Iman Islam. Of the five which are outer duties, the first is to accept Allah. The second is to worship Him. The third is charity or sadaqah. The fourth is to observe the fast. The fifth is to go on holy pilgrimage or hajj. These are the five required duties for man to perform. They are very easy to do, but this is a simplified meaning of Islam. There are also five waqts, or time of prayer, which begin at a particular time and end at a particular time. They have a beginning and an end. How many prostrations, sajdas, are done in these prayers? And some you bow, ruku, 17 or 19 times. On Fridays, there is a sermon or Qutbs. There is also a specific prayer called janaza, which is recited at a funeral. Thus, each time of worship and remembrance dhikr includes several kinds of prayers. Prayers said during prostration and prayers said during the fast, but these all have a limited time, a beginning and an end. To practice in this way is called shariat. It is a required duty or fard. This is an easy way to pray, somewhat like babies at play. This form of prayers suits us when we are still young. Just playing with dolls suits a baby level of wisdom. It is something we can understand because it relates to intellect and is the form most acceptable to that level of understanding. This is but one aspect of Iman and faith. For other levels of wisdom, there are many different ways of prostrating and worshipping Allah. When an Insan Kamil, using the strength of his Iman and his divine analytic wisdom, which separates and discriminates, sets out to contemplate evil and goodness, essence and creation, absolute certitude of faith and surrender to Allah, permissible and prohibited, mankind and beasts, good and bad, truth and falsehood, prayer and the explanations relating to prayer, when he reflects on the worship of the one God, the Emperor, the one who accepts prayer, the one worthy of worship, as opposed to the practice of worshiping things other than God as equal to Him. When analyzing with the discriminant of divine analytic wisdom, this Insan Kamil reflects on the one without limit, the endless and comparable one. He will realize that all of everything belongs to God. Earth and sky, form, soul, man, everything. Once he realizes with his divine analytic wisdom that everything belongs to his Lord, he will say everything is his. There is nothing that is mine. Heaven is his. This world is his. The body and soul are his. Nothing is mine. When he analyzes, discerns, and understands, he will see only the form and light of the Qalb, the form of Insan. What will the form of this light be? It will resplend as Ahmad and Muhammad, the Qalb which is Ahmad, and the beauty of Allah that is Muhammad, both of which are the form of his essence, the form of grace. And Insan Kamil will see only this grace. In that state, he will ask himself, who am I? And with that understanding, he will surrender unconditionally and become a slave to God, saying, I do not exist, Ya Rahman, O Merciful One. When he understands such Iman in the form of Iman Islam within that Iman, and when he understands the Kalma, he will see nothing but God. He will see no end or beginning to him. He will see no idols. Once he understands this, everything will be God, and he will accept God unconditionally. Knowing there's no God but God, none worthy of worship but God, he will establish faith, determination, and certitude in that belief that there is no other God, and he will certainly surrender his Iman to God who created him. His only treasure will be Allah. He will think, what do I own? I have nothing. God is my only treasure. He is the only treasure that exists forever. Accepting this, he will begin to place his intention on God and to glorify and worship him and pray to him, and he will begin to do dhikr to God. In this way, an Insan Kamil makes himself die by destroying the I. By destroying that which says I in you, he puts to death the mind, which in this world, the cravings, which are the base desires of illusion. When this happens, his soul, which is his life, will glorify God unceasingly, performing 43,242 prostrations to him every day without beginning or end, just as the sun and the moon endlessly go around and around. The light, which is the soul, the effulgence, which is the Nur, the Kalma, which is Ahmad, and the beauty of his countenance, which is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of which are Allah's essence, uniting as one day and night with no limit, will all glorify Allah continuously. During this glorification, every prostration will be in surrender to the only one worthy of worship. One who does this Dhikr is an Insan Kamil, a perfected man, having acquired the beauty of the kalama of God's essence. The beauty of God's essence, which is Ahmad, and the light of the countenance of God, which is Muhammad. This Insan Kamil stands in the universe of the soul, the universe of light, and glorifies and remembers the one who resplends in the world of grace as the grace for all the universes, the Rahmat al-Alameen, the undiminishing wealth of grace. Such is the worship performed by an Insan Kamil of Iman Islam. The worship done by this Insan Kamil, who is Ahmad and Muhammad, will shine with the resonance and the resplendence of Nur Muhammadiyah. For him there is no beginning or end to time, no time at all, no fasting, no charity, no hajj. These things are not for him, nor are they within him or within his Iman. His only possession is Allah. This is the worship which carries the Dawlat, the wealth of the Qalb, which is the form of the true Iman of Insan Kamil. May Allah bestow this grace upon everyone. Ameen. On the path of Allah's essence, His dot. This form of prayer belongs rightfully to only one group of people, the true followers of Ahmad and Muhammad. The other 72 groups are divided by their many different kinds of prayers with their time limits, and by discrimination such as my house, your house, my possession, your possession, my race, your race, my scripture, your scripture, and my child and your child. These limitations are created by our bondage and attachments, our intentions and focus. They come from the level of intellect and arise from our mind and desire. Just as hunger, disease, aging, and death have their respective times, prayer have also been assigned certain times to begin and end. In keeping with this, 5 obligatory duties and 5 prescribed times or waqts of prayer have been decreed. The ways in which these prayers are to be conducted have also been established. First, there is awal fajr, the pre-dawn prayer, and the subh, or early morning prayer. Subh means the time of emergence. Then comes the zuhr, or noon prayer, and then the asr, or afternoon prayer. Next there is the maghrib, or sunset prayer, which relates to the time of aging or darkening. And finally there is isha, or late night prayer, which represents the time of death. The true meaning of these 5 times is as follows. At the time of subh prayer, man needs to understand the earth from which he was created, and then make his connection to that earth die.